SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
When addiction takes control, getting help can change everything. Parkwood Behavioral Health System offers compassionate, evidence-based addiction treatment for adults right here in Mississippi. Take the first step today. Visit parkwoodbhs.com. Healing starts here. With limited exceptions, physicians are not employees or agents of this facility.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
It's a monsoon out there. Man, that is a bunch of rain. What's going on across the state? I know the southern tier of the state in particular has been absolutely inundated, and there's flash flooding going on. Haven't heard of any severe weather as of yet. Have there been any reports, tornadoes, severe
I haven't
thunderstorms?
seen anything severe. I saw some suspected tornadic activity, but it could have just been wind, but it was very limited.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're looking at the radar, like I'm looking at the live radar right now for the whole state, and it looks like the Delta is really the only part of the Magnolia State that's not getting completely drenched. They got some spotty showers in places, but South Mississippi, south of I-20 is pretty much just a big block of green, red, yellow, and orange.
Yeah.
And then if you follow the line of, say, like the Natchez Trace into central and northeast Mississippi, there's just a whole bunch of yellow, red, and orange.
So my fellow bandmate, by the way, Steve Lott, he's been on the program before. He plays lead guitar in the house band, represents George, Lucedale area, Stone County, I believe, is also in his district. But he sent me a note this morning talking about the MEMA app. He said it's quite useful, so I'm giving them a little bit of props here. He said you can set notifications up in your area. Says it does a great job of very timely sending of alerts. Of course, he makes the point, you and I have talked about this before, all these tools we have now at our disposal, because we all walk around with something connected to all that information. You don't have to be sitting in front of a television like we did in the old days or listening to your radio off air. So, yeah, shout out to MEMA. Representative Steve Lott said he's been using it. They've been getting drenched in his part of the state, as you know, and he pointed out Picayune, in particular, said they have received an inordinate amount of rain, and it's starting to cause some swelling of the creeks and the lakes, the ponds, the rivers, all the bodies of water, causing problems in that area, sort of south-central, southwest Mississippi. And that's because there's a tropical storm, Arthur, I believe it is, named Arthur, in June. Doesn't appear to pose any threat with respect to wind, just a bunch of dang rain. Unusual weather pattern, I would say, for this time of year. Such a contrast to the drought that we have experienced in the last few years. But here we are. So stay safe out there, folks. That's the main thing. And take your time driving and stay weather aware. Make sure you got your hands on the wheel and feet on the controls underneath you there, and most importantly, your eyes on the road. Because one thing's for sure, Rhino, stuff happens quicker when you're on those wet roads. So be aware of that. So shout out.
I'm just seeing an update. We were talking about potential tornadic weather. It's not much, but it is the only thing I'm seeing. Is there is one of those angry red polygons running from roughly New Orleans all the way across the Mississippi Gulf Coast, snagging Hattiesburg and Laurel in the polygon, all the way over to Mobile, Alabama, up to Monroeville.
Wow.
And they are saying there is a 10% tornadic risk in that area.
Okay. So some of that...
Still a low risk, but we were just talking about it and it popped up.
Some of that embedded sort of stuff, right? I think it's what we're looking at. You got the rain forming up, and you get a little clash of the air, and boom, tornadoes can spin up. So be aware, folks. The Supreme Court has made a ruling on a law that bans drug users from owning guns. This is the same one used to prosecute Hunter Biden. And so the court ruled that the government cannot prosecute a man for owning a firearm just because he habitually smoked marijuana. That's what they decided today. This clarifies a section of the Gun Control Act that forbids a person who is, quote, an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substance from owning guns. So that seems pretty straightforward. So I'm not really sure what the nuance here is that caused the Supreme Court to rule this way. So I think the case that they considered involved searching the Texas home of who was thought to be a drug dealer. 2022. So they found marijuana, a small amount of cocaine, and a Glock 9mm pistol. The individual, Ali Danielle Hamani. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but that's what it looks like phonetically. Admitted to law enforcement that he smoked weed approximately every other day, but that he was not on drugs during the search. Indicted for unlawful possession of the gun, later challenged that, arguing that the wording of the statute was too vague and actually violated his Second Amendment rights. So there you go. Quote, the government's claim that historical, from the ruling, that historical laws targeted habitual drunkards for the same reason targets unlawful users because they regularly use intoxicants is difficult to square with the historical record. Makes sense. So there you go.
That was when, during the oral arguments, you had the conversation about how much the Founding Fathers drank compared to what you would call an alcoholic nowadays.
So I think the issue here is just the subjective nature, right, of you're a user, you use to the point where you shouldn't have a gun. And that's just extremely subjective. And I think it's fair to say that differs by person.
That being said, I don't know that this Supreme Court case is going to have very much reach as far as, say, the forms you fill out for the background check that says you got to check, are you a user, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is going to change that. I think it would require a separate lawsuit challenging that before you see that changed, unless the Trump administration surprises everybody and says, well, based on this ruling, we should change it. It's not outside the realm of possibility, but I would imagine this is going to be a very narrow decision that doesn't have a whole lot of bearing for anybody outside of this one individual.
Something that
it sets a precedent that can be used for other individuals, but I don't know that it's going to have a whole lot of ground-shaking changes coming out of it.
I think you're right in that respect. And I was going to say that this is something we discussed considerably on the program when Mississippi's medical marijuana law was being considered and then ultimately went into effect. we received a countless number of our audience would send us questions about how does this affect the checkbox, the application for a firearm. And I think you made the point over and over again that, yeah, there are no police that's going to come determine whether or not you're a drug user and you lied on your form. I think that the issue would be, I guess, if you got involved in some sort of crime, you were accused of a crime involving a firearm that you acquired by checking the box that said, yeah, I don't use drugs, and then it was determined, well, yeah, you do, a lot. So that's
like
subjective.
The old seatbelt law. Before Mississippi law enforcement could pull you over for not wearing a seatbelt, it was secondary.
Okay.
Which means they had probable cause for something else, like you were speeding or you ran a stop sign or you didn't use a signal or whatever else, and they pull you over and you're not wearing a seatbelt. That was a secondary violation. They tacked it on.
Okay.
That's pretty much how every prosecution for habitual users buying firearms went. It was they were already caught up in something else, and they tacked it on.
That makes sense. So just an interesting ruling that just came out this morning that I thought it was worth sharing with you guys. We got Kristin Vance Richards, founder and CEO of WealthSHE, wrote an article in Forbes that I think you'll want to hear about. Coming on the program next, it's Jim Leggette at 11:05, lecturer of economics at Mississippi State University. Chris Brown, Northern District Public Service Commissioner at 12:20, coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Fourth and Goal Sportscast.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Appreciate that, Rhino. Let's see. One of the founding members sadly passed away yesterday. Walter, right? One of the brass players. 81 years old. Man, do I feel old thinking about enjoying that music in my youth. And here, one of the founding members of the great band Chicago. His last name starts with a P. Can't remember it.
Parazator?
That sounds right. Yeah. Man. So sad to hear that. 81 years old. Made a lot of great music that we still enjoy today. Right now, of course, it's Kristin Vance Richards, founder and CEO of WealthSHE. Appreciate you coming on, Kristin.
Thank you, Gerard. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you have written an article that was published in Forbes entitled, Why Women Who Build Wealth Still Feel Poor. Tell us about that. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, this was my first article with Forbes, and very excited to say that I am a Forbes contributor. So,
that's awesome.
Yes, I'll be publishing at least twice monthly going forward.
Wow.
Yeah. But my first article, I had to go through a very lengthy vetting process, and the editors at Forbes really liked this idea that I brought to the table about financial lag. And as a researcher, I have studied behavioral economics for quite a while, but I was reflecting on my own experience as a divorced single mom of many years and noticed that even though I have developed a 7-figure net worth for myself, that sense of anxiety and worry hasn't gone away. And I didn't find a name for what it was that I was experiencing in the research literature. And so I worked to put a name to that, and I've titled it Financial Identity Lag. And so, you know, people hear about imposter syndrome, and it's definitely not that, because individuals who have financial identity lag, they know they're good at what it is that they do. They've developed wealth, they are developing wealth, they are working hard to become financially stable, But it's about that belief versus the present moment, and that anxiety really doesn't slow down. It doesn't shut down. And it's trying to get your body to calibrate. And so another term that I've identified is called financial calibration, and that's really the process of ensuring that the systems, your nervous system, your behavioral system, that it all coalesces, that it all aligns through that process of calibration. So just because you develop wealth doesn't mean that you necessarily feel wealthy or stable or secure, and there's that sense of lag that a lot of women, at least that's what I can attest to at this point, carry with them into the future.
Well, it sounds like, though, that the concerns that cause the anxiety and I guess the feeling that you're still poor, as you say in your article, is really not financial related, that it's other things that we just need as humans in our life to feel, I guess, some sense of peace of mind and wealth and just comfort, right?
Yeah, Gerard. So it can be financial related or perhaps not be. And so I just want to share a little story. My kids, when I became a single mom, were 1 and 2. When their dad and I separated, and 2 and 3 when we divorced. And I would have this cuddle 2 minutes time with the kids because I worked multiple jobs, still work multiple jobs because at this point I love being a researcher as well as an academic and now a Forbes columnist. But I had this thing called Cuddle 2 Minutes. And so I would literally set the timer with my kids after we would do bath time and prayers, read a book, and then they would each get 2 minutes to cuddle with mama before it was time for me to say, lights out, get back to work. And so for me, when I had barely, 5 figures to lean on in times of a financial emergency, it's almost as if that sense of instability and fear of the sky falling doesn't go away, because you're always sort of scared that even though you're building wealth, that some disaster is going to happen at any moment and take it all away.
So is this unique to females, though? I mean, you focus on that in the article, but I would think this would apply to the male.
Yeah, I don't believe it's unique to females at all. It just so happens that, I've started a business called wealthSHE, and so I really focus on the female perspective and being a female as well. Yeah. But as I've reflected on this, I've had male friends that talk a lot about how their families have experienced, even generationally, the Great Depression, and how they saw their grandparents or parents go through some similar things, and they carry that generationally with them too. I have a story about my grandfather, Edgar Fogelman, who's passed away, but people used to call him E.P. Fogelman. Those were his initials, and he said it stood for every penny. Because even though he had worked very hard, was an entrepreneur, and amassed wealth for himself, he made sure every penny mattered. I remember when he used to wash out the bread bags and reuse them for things. He would reuse paper towels and hang them up on the line to dry, even in his vacation home outside of Orlando, Florida.
All right, so talk about your company, wealthSHE, right?
wealthSHE.
Yeah. So what's that all about?
Yeah. Well, of course, there's the word WealthE and emphasis on the he there. Yeah. And so wealthSHE is really focused on empowering women to develop finance. And I am a former research fellow with the National Endowment for Financial Education. Did that during my PhD program at Florida State University, and have spent a long time working in the area of financial education as well as financial capability. And I've just really noticed that there is a lack of really good information for women in the market. And there's a lack of coaching and support as women really start to try to get on the right track for themselves financially and go from, I have this knowledge, I have this information, but what do I do with it? And so wealthSHE helps to go from, okay, you have this information, and now we need to put the behaviors in place to make sure that you can capitalize on that information and do the next right thing, which, there's several series of those, to develop the wealth that you're hoping to develop, the sense of stability, the financial agency to get where you want to be.
Yeah. Is there like a target? You need this much money? There's lots of wealth managers, that engage in all sorts of services to that effect. But are you focused on that, or more about just kind of in general how to have that sort of balance in your life?
I'm focused in general on how to have that balance in your life. So there's no set amount of money that an individual has to have to participate in group coaching, one-on-one coaching, in wealthSHE. It's really a client-centered on what are their goals, helping to identify those goals and helping them move step by step to reaching them. But I've also found that when you have a group of women that have their own goals and can talk about those goals together, they can lean on one another for support, and with a coach to guide them through that process, they can achieve much more than they thought that they would be able to otherwise. And
you talk about this in the article that you can have a tidy net worth, but maybe don't have the liquidity that you need to deal with some sort of unexpected event in your life that could send you into a tailspin, honestly.
Absolutely. So you might have a lot of money in your 401k or a good amount of money in your 401k, but then you have an emergency that comes up. What do you do then? So women bring all kinds of questions to the table, and we're able to talk through those and make a plan together.
Yeah. And I think that is true for a lot of American households and just a lot of American individuals as well in general that are facing that prospect. Mm-hmm. It's a concern.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I also don't want to lose sight of single moms as one myself. Single moms on average have $10,700 median net worth. That's not much. And those women are tasked with raising kiddos, raising a family, and often feel a great sense of insecurity. And so I recognize that I have been very privileged to have the drive, the focus, the aspirations that I've had, the educational background that I've had, and have wanted to put this all together into a program to help inspire other women, whether they're single moms or career women such as myself that really want to grow something bigger.
If you can hang around, we keep talking a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
we got
great.
Kristin Vance Richards in the Element Wealth studio. $10,000 for the single mom, right?
Single mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just so our audience knows, in case you don't remember this from statistics, that's half or above and half or below is what median means. So, man, that's astonishing. Coming right back. Stay with us.
From the Sea Group, Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Kristin Vance Richards, founder and CEO of wealthSHE, also recently published an article in Forbes that was entitled, Why Women Who Build Wealth Still Feel Poor. So enjoyed reading that. So before we went to break, explain that or share that with the folks again, the single mom, the median net worth of a single mom, $10,000 and change.
Yeah, $10,000 and change.
Half below that, half above that, and that net worth's likely not liquid. Certainly on the lower end of the scale, right?
Yes, and you can break that down further. That $10,700 is 3 cents for every dollar a married couple has.
Okay, 3 cents for every. 3 cents. All right. So is there some advice there that you could offer, Kristin? Maybe, and you've been through this personally, that you know, you're not going to bat 1,000 at this, and things change, obviously, in relationships. Mm-hmm. But I just wonder sometimes if folks don't rush into these marriages without really thinking through everything properly, and they end up falling apart.
Best laid plans,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
So there's never a crystal ball. If there was, I'd be looking into it every single day, as I'm sure many would. And I always say, if God would have told me how life was going to turn out from the beginning, I could have done a really great job, you know, and work that plan and work it well. But that's just not how life unfolds. And so we have to expect the unexpected. But when I approached Forbes, I pitched to them that I wanted to share a perspective of being a single mom who could capitalize on the strengths that women develop as single moms when it comes to building wealth. And that wasn't something that they had thought about before. And so when the editor read that, I think it really struck her as there might be something there.
Okay.
And so, you know, yes, the median is $10,700, but let's talk a minute about the strengths that single moms bring to the table because of the challenges that they've had to face. And so I've kind of developed a 5C model is what I call it. And so clarity is part of that. And clarity is not just education. It's knowing yourself and your history with money. So, and this is not just single moms by any means. This is part of WealthSHE. But you have to really get to know your financial situation like you might never have before when you find yourself in the midst of divorce. When you find yourself in the midst of a big life change, be it being laid off or going through the Great Recession or going through COVID, many things we've experienced in life, you have to really gain clarity and know that what your money history looks like, what your relationship is with money, and then have a sense of clarity about how you might move forward, even if that clarity brings fear. And then the next C is courage. So the stakes are high when you get that clarity. You have to, though, take the new job. You have to take risks. You have to perhaps invest. It's scary for a lot of people to invest because they don't quite understand what investing means. They don't know how to go about the process of investing. We talk a lot about putting financial education in schools, but do we talk about what that really looks like to own stock? Do we talk about the process of having a mutual fund? Do we talk about what a 401k really means or what a Roth IRA really means? So it's taking the courage to gain the information and take the next step. It's scary. It's being willing to do things scared and do it anyway. And I often, as a professor, told my students that, that is part of life, is being willing to put yourself out there. If you don't have one foot in an area that makes you feel just a little bit uncomfortable, are you really living life? And so I empower and encourage women to be courageous and take charge of their lives that way, because the risk of doing nothing is even bigger than doing something.
Well, are you finding that that women are wanting to engage, they're wanting to learn about this stuff, they're wanting some advice, some counsel?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's even a whole group called the Financial Therapy Association, which has come up in the last 20 years because financial therapists, as they call them, they come from a variety of backgrounds, from mental health to psychology, social work, financial planning, financial coaches, financial counselors, and they're understanding that money is more than numbers. The psychology of money is so important.
Yeah.
And even Richard Thaler in the last 7 years, won a Nobel Prize for his work in behavioral economics, because the old understanding of economics is like we were computers functioning with all the information in a perfect system, but that's just not how people are wired. So yes, people really want this information, and people want to know how to do it better, because they're understanding that on their own they're not doing it well.
So what sorts of resources are available to provide this sort of training or counseling that doesn't cost a bunch of money? Because a lot of these folks really don't have the money to invest in those sorts of services.
It's true. I find that people struggle no matter their income range, but there is group counseling for sure, and so that's something that WealthSHE offers. And so when you're participating in a group, the entry to access that information is more cost effective because there's more than one woman in that counseling, coaching opportunity. But if you're talking about someone that might be struggling with high levels of debt or other financial burdens, there's debt counseling that's available. There's other types of products and services that are available too, and so we can point those folks in the right direction.
Are there groups or organizations or clubs that someone could look into to perhaps join? And I think there's a lot of value in interacting with other people that are in your same situation. Sure.
Well, I would recommend that they reach out to me directly. I have a website, thewealthSHE.com. It's currently under development with our great folks at Mad Genius here in Ridgeland, Mississippi. But they can contact me there. They can also reach me at thewealthSHE@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to give them some additional information and resources. Another website to take a look at would be the National Endowment for Financial Education, where my dear friend Billy Hensley is the CEO and president. And would also recommend taking a look at the Financial Therapy Association website, too, where you can find a lot of coaches, counselors, and other like-minded individuals who have their services posted there as well.
So what's on the horizon for the content of future articles that you're going to contribute to Forbes? What are you thinking about?
Oh, gracious. So I was just talking to the editor at Forbes this morning, and it seems like Forbes is recognizing that people really want to know, am I financially okay? And so they've asked that I write several articles in a series to help answer that question of, am I okay?
You personally, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, you just told us you have a 7-figure net worth.
Remember that financial identity lag piece as the sky's going to fall at any moment, right?
Yeah, right.
Yes. But people want to know how they measure up. And you can look at a retirement benchmark all day long. And for most people, you're going to look at a benchmark of the mean or the average, and you're going to fall very short. You're going to look at the median, and you might fall very short on that benchmark as well. But I'm proposing other benchmarks that people need to take a look at to see if they are following great steps to make sure that ultimately they will be, if they're not already, financially okay.
Okay. And Kristin, what about just advising people on how to efficiently spend their money as well, because we're not always good at that.
Yes. So one article I published a few years ago was about integrating mindfulness into financial spending and financial planning. And so I take individuals through several different exercises, and one is called Pause and Plan. And so we talk about being very mindful in our spending, and of course we develop a budget line item by line item, but before spending, pause, take a beat, breathe, and think, do I really need that? And I imagine there's a lot of listeners that maybe have 100 different items in their Amazon cart at any time, right? So if you keep it in your cart, you're practicing a part of that pause and plan.
Just
because you didn't
cart.
Push the buy now button, and it's not necessarily going to be at your door tomorrow morning between 4 and 8 a.m.
Kristin, appreciate you coming in. Kristin Vance Richards, founder and CEO, WealthSHE. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Gerard.
Congratulations on the deal with Forbes. That's great.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
Coming right back in the Element Wealth Studio.
Before you're...
We interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. You need to listen to this.
MidDays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We are back with you in the Element Wealth studio. You know by now that the United States and Iran have signed an agreement yesterday to end this nearly 4-month-long war, that being reported, a memorandum of understanding. So this includes some provisions that both sides have agreed to comply with, but it primarily sets the stage for further negotiation to hammer out a more permanent deal between the parties, including the disposition of Iran's nuclear capability. Many in Washington are criticizing the deal, saying it stops short of that. And it's kind of hard to tell, honestly, at this point. The president has made it clear that they will turn over the nuclear dust. And by the way, that refers to the enriched uranium that is stored in its pressurized containers, is the storage approach. And apparently they're buried beneath the surface, beneath some big mountain somewhere. The president says only this country and China have the means to excavate, his word. I got to tell you, I don't see the regime showing up saying, here, Mr. President, have our enriched uranium. I don't know how that's going to happen. But the president's made it clear that that's either going to happen or he's going to drop bombs on their heads, I think is what he said. And then the Strait of Hormuz ostensibly is open. And there's all kinds of reports about traffic flowing through the strait. Some say it's still dangerous, that there's still mines underneath the surface of the water. They still got these drones that are going out and causing problems. They're kind of annoying and menacing, but they do pack a punch. They can make some problems for these ships. And then there's the issue of paying tolls to pass through. So today, based on what I've learned in reading through the documents and reports, apparently those tolls have been suspended for this 60-day negotiation period, but making that permanent, no tolls to pass through, is a subject for the permanent negotiation. So that's kind of where we are. Look, I support this. I think this was the right thing to do, is to get in this war and end the hostilities and bring everybody to the table to negotiate. But I'm still concerned, first, that they will comply. I'm not worried about this country. I think we're pretty good on our word. I'm worried about Iran, as you have pointed out, others on our text line, me a little bit as well. Lying, if it means that we're gaining advantage over the infidels, to the infidels, is perfectly accepted. Not only that, it's encouraged. It's like sanction in their culture. So I have concerns about that. And then I just have concerns that ultimately they will abandon their nuclear ambitions and turn over the material. And I got to say this, as much as I view Israel as an ally, they've proven, I think, that, we had this ceasefire going on. You guys are still bombing, right? Shooting missiles and the like. And I think the president has had some stern words with Netanyahu of Israel. And so I have concerns about them adhering to the ceasefire. They've already breached it. So during this 60-day period, because that would blow up, no pun intended there, the negotiations, if that should happen. And they've also expressed, you've seen this, Rhino, they've also expressed concerns that to some extent it would weaken their defensive capability. in the region that they still could be a target, and they may have their hands tied a bit through this agreement. So they've expressed concerns. Bottom line is we got some work to do. This memorandum of understanding, my understanding is that the president went ahead and signed it last night at dinner. Did you see that? With Macron, with French President Macron. So I'm not sure exactly what prompted that, but apparently he decided, let's get this thing over with, because it was scheduled to be signed tomorrow, Friday. And he went ahead and signed it, put pen to paper. I thought that was fascinating. Just kind of a twist that was unexpected. But I'm going to remain optimistic. It's the only way to be about these kinds of situations. And at this point, good news is oil trending downward. Now the average price in the country has a 3 handle in front of it. So it is busted through the $4 mark. That's good news for price of gas at the pump. I've seen so many conflicting reports on the outlook of oil from, we're going to still see it return to higher levels, to, no, we're actually going to have an oil glut next year. I've seen that as well. We're coming right back after the news with Jim Leggette, Lecturer of Economics, Mississippi State University.
Of MidDays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. MidDays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 2 of MidDays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
We welcome now Jim Leggette. He is a lecturer of economics at Mississippi State University. Hey, Jim. Thanks for coming on.
Morning. How you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Just trying to survive this monsoon that we're having here in the state of Mississippi.
Looks like we're going to have it for a while. And then if our friends on the coast, they better have their boat ready.
Yeah, it's really something. So you crossed the pond and went to Germany here recently, and you're doing some research. My understanding is you're writing a book about World War II. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this all started about 3 years ago when my wife and I did a tour with the World War II Museum, and I got curious about what my uncle did. And there were rumors like he was with Patton in the Battle of the Bulge, but no one knew it. You know how family folklore is, kind of like your relative won the war by himself. And then some of the folks I've met there got me started on this. And then I discovered, wait a minute, he really did do some interesting stuff. And as I started learning stuff, I started making notes, and notes became narrative. And if you look under the baseball caps there's 300 pages. And what we did, and it's like once you get started, you can't stop. And what we did in the month of May, my wife properly pointed out, you're not going to be satisfied till you actually go there and see the battlefields that he fought on in France and Germany. And that's what we just got back from doing. I still hadn't figured out what I'm going to do with all. I think 3 chapters will get born, but that was kind of the point.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, when do you expect to release the book, Jim?
Well, I think at some point I just got to say I'm done.
Okay.
I think, because you could go forever. And so what I'm going to do, I would say at least a year, but it always takes longer than that. And then the process is just because I'm done doesn't mean a publisher's done with you yet, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, that's good. So you may find some other subject matter to write about.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't got a couple more visits planned. But one of the things we did on this trip that was interesting, and I found a guy who's a battlefield guide from Normandy, but from the Alsatian region of France. And that's that part of France that borders Germany. And depending on who won the last war, it's either French or German. And he's from there, so he found some obscure places for us. But more importantly, he helped us make connections with the people that live there and remember it. Perhaps one of the most, I can come up with several things, but perhaps the most powerful moment. We had the privilege of having lunch with an 86-year-old woman who was 4 years old during the Battle of Hattin in January of 1945, and she was sharing her reminiscence. And I took along this picture of him, probably shortly after the war. But the most poignant moment was she held it up to her head like this and basically said, "Thank you for coming to save us." Huh. And my wife happened to nail that picture.
Wow. That is awesome.
And then the other one we did, we went to visit the graves of some of his associates, his battalion commander and a peer, and I think a guy that was under him. And we made contact with a French group who's basically adopting the graves. Yep. And this gentleman who's like 86 played taps on the harmonica kind of as a special thing for us. Yeah. And that was special. Yeah. So I think, and one of the things my wife and I were talking about, we took from this is, to us as Americans, we go to war someplace, then we come home. Yeah. To them, the war came to them. And everybody has a story. And then the other story I'd like to share with you briefly. We went into Germany and went to a site of a prisoner of war camp. For those of you who are fans of Masters of the Air, at the very end, they liberated a prison camp gets liberated. Yep. My uncle's division was the one that liberated it. They think there were like 100,000 there, give or take. But what was perhaps poignant I was with two German guys, and we were standing by a memorial, and we were just sitting there very casually, like I'm talking to you. Well, what did your grandfather do during the war? And then you stop and think about it. Wait a minute. 80 years ago, our respective ancestors would have been trying to kill each other. Yeah, that's true. And you go, okay, maybe there was a purpose here. So, I could probably tell you guys more and more stories about it, but very personal trip. Learned a lot just off there. I have a stack of books about Yay High, and over to the side I have a do list. It's about 3 legal legal pages long, and each one of those will probably take who knows how long. So wow, so it's fascinating journey, and I guess the loop back to that, what makes this interesting, we as Americans do not know about the second part of the Battle of the Bulge that no one talks about. We all know Patton going up the Ardennes and saving that paratroopers who claimed they didn't need to be rescued. But what happened is when he left, that left a vulnerability, and then the Germans exploited that. And on New Year's Day, my uncle's division, which had been in there for 2 months, met the 6th SS Mountain Division, which had been at war for 4 years, in a windy area. They got their butt kicked, but he saved his guys. And we actually got to ride on that road. But more importantly, it slowed down the Germans. Now, the rest of the story about the Battle of the Bulge story is the Army didn't think the stuff in Alsace was important. Perhaps due to personality conflicts, they now think is important. And there were some things that could have gone really, really wrong. So I can say my uncle was in the Battle of the Bulge. In fact, they didn't give him a campaign star for it. Now it's considered all part of the same campaign, partially because their commanding general appealed to General Marshall. And now that rest of the part about Patton, last 3 weeks of the war, they got transferred to Patton's Third Army, so they can legitimately say they served with Patton.
Has there anything that you've discovered through this research that really shocked you? You just weren't aware of, didn't know, and I guess are incorporating that now?
Oh, absolutely. Certainly this other trip. On the trip, let's start at the personal level. My uncle, like a lot of men who served in combat, probably from time immemorial, never wanted to talk about what they did.
Yeah.
My dad kind of emulated, he did some pretty important important stuff, but we never knew. And then as I started this process, you know what? You really did do some important stuff. And then we saw that ground. But so on a personal level, that meant a lot to me. I think on this particular trip, what surprised I'm using surprised because I can't come up with the word, how appreciative and welcoming the French were to us. They brought us in their homes, fed us, and that same day went out to some farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and they served us this wonderful meal, tart flambe. So I guess what I took from it is how eager they were to tell their story, and how they appreciative for the sacrifices of our forefathers. And part of me always thought that was a throwaway line.
Yeah.
At least the Frenchmen I landed across is they felt differently. And maybe the thing to think about.
Yeah.
That part of France, it went back and forth for several hundred years. The Germans, what they did is when said, okay, you are now part of Germany. You do not speak French. And they drafted 140 Alsatians, most of which went to the Eastern Front, most of which died. So it's a whole different. I got a book over here. I haven't looked at it yet, but it looks like, imagine if you came into Mississippi and said, you don't say y'all anymore. You're not eating grits. And by the way, you're going, you get the idea. So as I learned that, I had a different appreciation for what that particular part of the country endured.
Gotcha. Jim, appreciate you joining us. Fascinating, and congratulations on the work. Look forward to the book, and sounds like you got some other projects in the works as well. Always enjoy talking to you.
And, as you know, one project begets another.
Absolutely.
But I'm trying not to be that guy who has 15 unfinished projects in his garage.
We got you. Appreciate it.
Earthwalk Shoes has moved to a new location in Ridgeland, still offering the personalized service for the perfect fit they're known for. Find your favorite brand, Hoka, Birkenstocks, SAS, Brooks, and more at Earthwalk Shoes, 588 Century Place, Suite G in Ridgeland, behind Grills of Mississippi.
Hey, this is Bob, and if you're like me, you like dealing with local people. Majestic Metals was founded in Mississippi in 1954 and are headquartered right in Gluckstadt. For complete metal building systems and steel roofing and siding, call the hometown folks. Majestic Metals, 800-647-8540 or online at majesticmetalsinc.com.
Hey folks, I'm Andy Gibson, and you already know about our Mississippi Farmers Market every Saturday 8 to 1 in Jackson on High Street. And we're excited to announce a brand new market for you and for our farmers, the Genuine Mississippi Farmers Market in Brandon, Mississippi. Now, this has been so successful, we're having to move it to the Brandon Amphitheater every Saturday, 8 to 12, weather permitting. It's a big open space. Come shop local, eat fresh, eat healthy, support our farmers. I'm Andy Gibson. I'll see y'all at the Farmers Market.
Hello, I'm Gary Jolly from the Tractor Store. LS Tractor understands your passion for the land, and just like you, LS Tractor is committed to excellence and superior products. LS Tractor comes with a long list of standard features that are unmatched by other brands and backed with the LS commitment to provide exceptional customer service and satisfaction. You get a lot more for your money with the LS Tractor. Come to the Tractor Store in Richland to experience the LS difference. The Tractor Store in Richland.
Ready to take control of your energy bill? Raise your hand to lower energy usage and costs. Entergy is here to help you save money. We're your power partner. Working together, we can find real solutions to give you greater control. From home energy assessments and AC tune-ups for increased efficiency, to customize business programs designed to help you cut costs. Ready to step up and save? Schedule your appointment at EnergySolutionsMS.com.
At Fillmore Buick GMC, we strive to make buying your next vehicle easy and take care of you long after you drive off the lot. That means upfront and honest pricing, doing everything we can to make the time you spend in the dealership as short or as long as you need. It means we understand that purchasing a vehicle is more than just a transaction for you. We want you to enjoy the experience as much as we appreciate your business. Find your next Buick, GMC, or pre-owned vehicle at FillmoreBuickGMC.com. Fillmore Buick GMC. You drive everything we do.
Bulldog Construction uses high-density polyurethane foam to lift and level concrete, stabilize eroding soil, and shore up seawall quickly, cleanly, and affordably. What does that mean for you? Less mess, less downtime, and long-lasting results. Call them today to schedule a free quote and get your project back on the level at Bulldog Construction, 601-853-4242. That's 601-853-4242.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, is everybody ready? I'm ready. Ready here. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth Studio. Thanks so much for being with us. So the TSA has launched a remote screening pilot program at Boston's Logan International Airport. This just happened June the 1st. They announced this partnership with the Massachusetts Port Authority. And here's what it means. You can go to a remote terminal in Framingham, Massachusetts, go through your TSA checks, then hop on a bus that will transport you to Logan Airport, the big airport that serves Boston, and avoid all the hassles of parking there and going through security and standing in line. So trying to, I guess, distribute out the security check process remotely so as to relieve some of the congestion and pressure at the primary airport. So a pilot program right now that the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, says if it all works out, could be rolled out to other, certainly major airport areas.
Speaking of airports and TSA, I've been all in on the World Cup.
Yeah.
The TSA did have to put out a public statement. I think it was yesterday when it finally came out. They were putting it together for a few days. But it was warning foreign travelers that have come to the U.S. for the World Cup heading home that you need to put any ranch dressing you're taking back with you in your checked luggage, that it can't come on the plane in your carry-on.
Why ranch dressing?
Because there are that many world travelers, specifically Europeans apparently, that have discovered the joys of ranch dressing and are trying to take as much home as they can.
Since when did ranch dressing become joyful?
Apparently they don't have it over there, and they really like it.
Jeez, of all the things that might be unique here in this country that are not available in those, ranch dressing? That's bizarre. Wonder who got that started.
I mean, it's the World Cup. There's all kind of bizarre stories.
That's true.
You've got the Scotland Tartan Army drinking out bars in Boston, selling more beer than they've sold for any St. Paddy's Day before. This is Boston, with a whole area of the city called Southie that's famous for their Irish immigrants, and the Scots outdrank the Irish.
Well, you're right. There are all kinds of crazy, bizarre stories, and some neat ones as well. This German guy, right? That's
oh yeah, Freddie.
become famous, world famous.
He got to talk to the astronauts on the International Space Station while he was in Houston. He got to sit in the capsule that orbited the moon recently.
I think that's all pretty neat. And I think one of the cool aspects of this whole event is all these people coming to this country and realizing it's not what they're being told it is back home. And their perspective is changing dramatically, positively.
Although there were some Scots fans that made the trip from Boston to New York, and they offended some New Yorkers that were asking about, well, how do you like New York? And they replied, it's not as good as Boston.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's a no-no, especially when you consider the rivalry, certainly from an athletics perspective, between those two markets, those two cities. Not as good as Boston.
I think the latest I saw on Freddie was yesterday or 2 days ago. He had a private aircraft company reach out to him and offer to fly him private to the, I believe, Ella Langley concert he's headed to today in Oklahoma. And he declined. He politely declined and said, respectfully, we would like to take the road to see more of America.
Yeah.
To which the fellow German, the automaker, the Volkswagen, reached out and offered to give him a bigger ride to put all of his souvenirs and stuff in for the trip.
Well, he wants to perhaps see the USA in a Chevrolet, right, rather than jetting around in a private jet. Man, yeah, it's a good story. I like that. So is there still a possibility that the U.S. could meet up with Iran at some point?
Everything's still up in the air. Yesterday was the last day for the first kind of tranche of matches because each group makes up 4 teams, and all 4 teams have to play the others. So there are three group matches. The first round of those got finished up yesterday. The second round starting today. So it depends on how the groups bear out as to whether or not the U.S. could meet Iran. But, yeah, it's still a possibility at this point.
Okay. That would be kind of cool. So quick check of your markets. They're in the green. The NASDAQ up nicely, 362 points. The Dow also up, not quite to that level, now up 180. So what's going on here is that yesterday the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh's first open market committee meeting, what a contrast he is from his predecessor, Jerome Powell, Fed chairman. I tuned in and listened to Kevin Warsh deliver his remarks. I regularly tuned in to Jay Powell and prior Fed chairman as well when they would meet with the press and field questions and just give an overview of their decision with respect to interest rates. Just a completely different tone and I think a completely different roadmap for the Federal Reserve. I would say that in a positive way. But they kept interest rates the same and signaled a rate hike this year and possibly next year, indicating that we may not see a decrease, an interest rate decrement until third, fourth quarter 27. That's the indication. Markets weren't crazy about that, but they're feeling better about it today. The Fed chair just announced, Kevin Warsh, that the central bank is dropping forward guidance. How about that? So they're not going to tell you, yeah, here's what we expect we're going to do in the coming quarters at these meetings. I'm fine with that, honestly. The biggest takeaway I got from those remarks yesterday was that he is completely restructuring and changing the committee aspect of the Federal Reserve and what the focus will be of the respective committees. And it sounded like it needed an overhaul and retooling based on his discussion of that. But he said we're going to change the way we gather and analyze data. And what he meant by the gathering is the sources of information that the Fed uses to make decisions about monetary policy. I totally appreciated this. And I'll give you an example. The Fed relies on lots of unreliable information that comes from other federal agencies to make these decisions. And he signaled that the Federal Reserve is going to deal more directly with industry and seek input from the private sector in shaping their decisions. That's good news. And often this information that they use to make decisions that comes from other agencies is just dated and it's not current. You think about the incredibly powerful technology we have today that all of our private sector companies are using. I mean, right at Walmart, if they have a Little Rock store that sells toothpaste at 1:05 a.m. in the morning, by 1:06 they know that toothpaste was sold. Globally in the company, that information. That's what they use to run the company efficiently, but not our Federal Reserve, as an example.
It's hard to find a Wally World open at 1 nowadays.
That's true. But
COVID killed the 24-hour Wally World.
Yeah, you're right. Bring it back. But I think it's good news that Warsh says, yeah, we're going to rely more on information from the ground, from industry, from the actual participants in the economy itself, and not rely so much on the government's. I've talked about that before, the labor force participation rate. They say they call 60,000 people a month. Show me somebody that's ever been called. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
And whatever comes our way.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth studio. On the C Spire text line, talking about this Supreme Court case earlier. The Supreme Court just ruled, and it concerns law around applying for the purchase of a firearm, and the question about being, what does it say, Rhino, a habitual drug user, or have you ever, I guess, is the way the question is structured. And so the Supreme Court came down with a ruling that basically attempts to, I guess, narrow that particular question as it pertains to owning guns. And it says that a Texas gun owner, that's the suit that was at question here, that was heard by the court, was facing criminal charges after admitting to marijuana use. And his house was searched. There was suspicion of him being a drug dealer. His house searched. They found drugs, also found firearms, and basically said, yeah, you can't do this. And he said, well, I'm not actually a habitual drug user. That's so subjective. Yeah, I got drugs here, but I'm not habitual. So it's kind of conflating recreational drug use with drug addiction is the way I would see it. But where do you draw the line? That's difficult.
That's what it comes down to, is how do the courts define habitual?
Yeah.
And that's how you wound up with the conversation about the Founding Fathers habitually drank enough to be considered clinically alcoholic by today's standards, but they were totally within their rights to bear arms.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So Randy in Starkville says they need to strike the words, in quotes, "have you ever," from the gun question. I've been sober 19 years, but I buy my guns privately. I would like to buy from a local gun shop, but I don't want to lie to ATF. Yeah, I get it. And so appreciate you sharing that, Randy. It just seems like it's a difficult thing to measure and ultimately enforce. Because I start thinking, Rhino, how many times do law enforcement conduct these sorts of investigations, busts, if you will, searches of one's property, home, vehicle, find drugs and guns?
I'm trying to find the most recent version of the 4473 because I know they updated it recently. Let's see. It looks like the question reads, it's question F. Are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? With a warning underneath it that says, warning, the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medicinal or recreational purposes in the state where you reside.
Okay.
So that particular question doesn't have the have you ever modifier.
Yeah.
Like G, have you ever been adjudicated as mentally defective? H, have you ever been discharged from the armed forces? J, have you ever been convicted in any court of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence?
Well, this is an interesting ruling, though. I mean, the fact that this case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, I find interesting on the surface. But now we have a ruling, and you just wonder how that will affect adjudication in lower courts going forward. I can't remember the last time I heard of a case, though, where someone was, I guess, accused of, would it be lying on the form, falsifying the form? Because, wait, I found drugs and guns. You said no, but does that really mean that you lied? Because
I mean, in the hypothetical, what if they purchased a gun and then became a user?
All possible, yeah.
Because I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think there's a federal law that prohibits the possession. I think those are all state and local laws.
That sounds right.
That prohibit possession if you are a user?
Yeah.
Or in possession?
So this is getting a bunch of news coverage, though, for sure, because I'm not sure that the ruling was expected to come out the way it did. And again, we'll see if that drives any change in the lower courts going forward, and maybe even in law enforcement in general, in their arresting activity and so forth. Because it is what happened here, right? It's my understanding is law enforcement suspects this individual's a drug dealer, has a warrant, searches the house, boom, we found drugs and guns. And they arrested him on that basis, just for possession and guns, simultaneously under his roof. And he sued and said, no, that's a violation of my rights. Went all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court sided with him, essentially. I mean, that's your understanding of it, right? Yeah. So that certainly will have consequences. There's no doubt about that. Just thought that was interesting. Again,
but like we said earlier, I don't know that particular Supreme Court decision is going to have wide-ranging consequences. It simply sets a precedent that can be used in the future to challenge the current policies and procedures.
That's probably right. So if this happens again and someone gets arrested and gets accused, I guess charged with that, yeah, this could certainly influence how the courts would rule or how they would treat such a case. They may just dismiss it. Hey, I got a Supreme Court case here that said, yeah, you're not really doing anything wrong here, haven't committed any crimes, and therefore we got to let you go. And just rule at that point, dismiss it. So, interesting that this is even going on. Yesterday, Kevin Warsh also emphasized that he's the new Fed chairman, by the way, that their focus is on price stability. He talked about strong productivity and massive capital investment, mainly driven by this AI revolution. Talked about job gains, low unemployment. And he is a supply sider. Now, what does that mean? It means that, and this is really consistent with Ronald Reagan's economic policy. I would argue he maybe was the first to really promote supply-side economics. It really means, hey, if you just give the private sector some jet fuel, lower taxes, less regulations, let them keep more of their money, and you see the private sector will produce more, that increases the supply sufficient or in excess of demand, and that keeps prices stable. And by the way, it also makes sure that people are working and earning enough compensation to live a comfortable life. Demand side economists, those are more left-leaning Keynesians. That's named after the famous economist John Maynard Keynes. And he basically said, yeah, the way to boost the economy is to boost demand. And the demand he was talking about primarily was government spending. That's demand side. That's what leftists generally believe in. Yeah, if we just spent more money, and even if it means we got to borrow it, which we certainly have been doing that will create economic prosperity different than supply-side economics. But we have a Fed chairman here that leans into the latter. He believes in that. Now, the central bank really isn't involved in those policies. Those are fiscal policies. Those are laws that come out of government, regulations that get promulgated by government. At the Fed, his role is monetary policy. They really have two sticks there. One is the benchmark interest rate, and the other is the amount of bonds they hold on their balance sheet. And all that really means is how much money is available in the economy. When you increase the money supply, that generally means there's more lower rates, more demand for it, as opposed to more liquidity in the economy available for loans and capital investment and so forth, as opposed to, no, we're going to hold all these, we're going to liquidate these off our balance sheet, I should say, which means that, hey, you banks, now you're holding these securities and you don't have as much liquidity to loan there. So, but he says inflation is the target. He's concerned about inflation. He said our goal is still 2%. He said, really, we've been above that for more than 5 years. Persistently high prices are a burden for the American people. Just the big takeaway there for me, Rhino, is a straight talker, not this gobbledygook we get out of Jay Powell. They're like, what the heck did he say? And you watch the markets go up and down, trying to decipher it, coming right back.
Up of Mississippi.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Springsteen makes great music, but rather unhinged from a political perspective. Geez, so I can't determine the town concerning this next story I'm going to share, the city, but it's a free neighborhood library box that's in a neighborhood where you can actually check out books and return books in the neighborhood. Well, it happens to be on a street adjacent to a home that has a flagpole in the yard, and it's got the American flag and a Trump flag flying. So this nutcase leftist mom who lives on the street filled up the library box, which has nothing to do with the homeowner, with the Trump and American flag in their front yard, filled it up with LGBTQ propaganda and pro-abortion material. These people are sick. Not that we don't already know that, but I'm looking at the little box and looking at some of these books. Detransition Baby? That's a book?
For deranged lunatics.
I had no idea. Books about abortion? We write books about abortion? Here's another one. Arc of Justice. Gosh, incidents in the life of a brave girl. How about this one? Post-Roe America. People are writing books about this? Oh, my gosh. So this nutcase went and filled a little box up with all books related to that subject matter. Just unbelievable. I'm telling you, it's religion for them. It truly is. Though they have no God, they have no soul.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Well, that's true on this earth. But I'll say it again. It
seems like people forget they were making little kids sing worship songs to Obama when he was president.
I do remember that now that you bring it up. But it's climate change, it's race, and it's radical gender ideology. Those are their political, if not just personal life gods. That's what they worship. Completely, totally deranged and sick. I just was shocked at that. Who takes the time to do that? What are you accomplishing?
Pathetic, worthless wastes of oxygen.
Achieving zero. Nothing.
Never have achieved anything. Never will achieve anything. Because they're that worthless.
That's just incredible.
That's why they vote Democrat.
That's unbelievable.
Because Democrats are worthless.
And speaking of which, the news out of Washington, D.C., the train keeps rolling in Democrat socialist land. The primary for the nation's capital's mayor, challenger there, has conceded to Democrat socialist Janice Lewis George. This movement towards Democrat socialism is engulfing the Democrat Party. This ain't your father's Democrat Party, as they used to say. There was a time when they kind of framed themselves as we're for the common, the working people, and people of all races and colors and stripes and all that kind. We have a big tent, and all that sort of stuff. No, that's not the case anymore.
It went from live and let live to live like I tell you or else.
That's exactly right. So this is City Council member Janice Lewis George, a self-avowed Democratic socialist, just like the nutcase Mondami mayor of New York. Man. So it looks like that we're going to see what happens after this. And it's just unbelievable to me that the people of Washington, D.C. see fit to sweep this person into office.
Didn't they elect a literal crackhead within my lifetime?
Oh, yeah. Marion Barry.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I mean...
On video, right.
The people that live in and around Washington, D.C. are a perfect example of what happens when you fill your brain with the stupidity that is liberal ideology.
It's really sad. It totally is.
You cease to be a functioning human being and you become a clapping seal for the dumbest people on the planet.
What bothers me is how many people in this country now are buying into this nutcase ideology under the pretense, the auspices, that this is going to improve their lives. Government is going to improve your life.
What did P.T. Barnum say? A sucker's born every minute?
Well, we got a bunch of them. We got to fix it. We got to start with the young people. Coming right back with Public Service Commissioner Chris Brown after the news.
Your home. And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year, oh Lord. I hope she holds on a little longer.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
We got Chris Brown, Public Service Commissioner, joins us in the next segment. We had that wrong. My apologies for that. So, Mose says we can't allow Iran to charge a fee for passage through a natural body of water. What's next? China demanding payment to pass through the East China Sea, the Philippines wanting payments for the Luzon Strait. I get it, Mose, and the president has said as much, and the vice president as well. But that's apparently that's part of the plan. I'm not sure if that sticks, if that remains in the final agreement. I don't think it should, and I agree. And it is crazy. They don't own that body of water for sure. We shall see. But hot off the press is that the vice president is rebuking Israel. Their cabinet, their president, about this agreement. I said that earlier in the program, how they apparently were not happy with it, felt like it diluted their strength, their ability to defend themselves in the country, and didn't really achieve the overall ultimate objective of ridding Iran of their nukes. So the vice president, man, he didn't hold back. He came after him. And he's right, in my view. It's Israel has been a steadfast ally. I think that's absolutely the case. And no one perhaps has been harmed by these menaces in the Middle East, the radical nutcases, than have they. Mostly because they absolutely hate Jews, and two, because of their proximity, their geographic location. We're fortunate in this country. Henry Barber talked about that yesterday. We got oceans that separate us. So, and we have a country that is surrounded on two sides with major bodies of water. So I agree, and that is a natural defense. But the Israelis, I think they're overreacting, and I'm pleased that the Trump administration is lashing back out at them, because they could endanger the deal. So let's get to the table and start negotiating, and negotiating good faith. And the president said this, the old Ronald Reagan principle of trust but verify still applies today, and we have the means to do that for sure. So let's move forward. Yeah. Can we just admit that it's a bad deal? Well, no, and I tell you why. And I don't mean to be so confrontational in that respect, but it's, as the president said, it's a memorandum of understanding to stop the dang war and to get the traffic flowing. Now, it's being reported now that some 12.5 million barrels of oil already moved through the strait. That's more than zero. It was averaging about 20 million a day, which roughly is 20% of global consumption. We consume globally about 100 million barrels of oil a day. This country consumes nearly a fifth of that on the global stage. So these are good things. Their economy is in a free fall, and there are a lot of, I think, decent people that don't want to be in war in Iran, that don't want this regime to be in control, but fear for their lives if they spoke up about it. And they're suffering the consequences. And so hopefully this will at least provide some relief, but let's get this agreement in place as a starting point to negotiating. Now, like the president said, if they don't negotiate in good faith, if they have what he called a meltdown, I think the vice president actually said that yesterday, meaning they just come to the negotiating table and basically push back on everything that they've agreed to in principle in the MOU. The president says we're going to drop bombs on their heads. That his words, literally, if that happens. So I think we got to give it time. I think we got to get everybody to the table, in the room, negotiating, and hopefully hammer out a deal. And hopefully it won't take 60 days. It doesn't seem like it should. I mean, there's not a lot at stake here. Even if you look at the MOU, the 13 provisions of the MOU, I mean, 2 or 3 of those are what I'd say super meaningful, substantive, might require some forethought and some protracted negotiation. But it comes down to their nuclear ambitions. More than anything, it comes down to that. And that's what the president has made clear. So I'd say we remain optimistic. Thomas and Greenwood, the war that who started? Them. What do you want to say, Thomas? They've been at war with us for
Thomas has hated
decades.
Trump's guts since the bump stock ban. Nothing we
true.
say, nothing Trump does, nothing is ever going to be good enough for Thomas the Doubter.
Oh, man. So I'll say it again. If the world doesn't have to concern itself 7/24, 365 with what these crazy people are going to do with a nuclear bomb, the entire planet benefits. There's absolutely no doubt. And I believe that's where we're headed. And I'm optimistic about it. It does no good to just mire in negativity and pessimism and criticism at this point when we're trying to get a deal done that would be in the best interest of the entire globe. And that's exactly what this is. So let's stay positive about this. We're just getting started. You're raining on the parade before the parade started. So think about, and I'm not one even like the president. I wish he wouldn't compare himself so much to Obama. I thought Obama's policies were terrible. I thought giving them suitcases full of money was terrible. But that's not going to help us in the future. I want him and his superpower negotiating skills at that table on behalf of the country and the world, hyper-focused on that. And I think he will once he gets into the room. I do believe that. And look, there's no doubt that to a great extent, it does kind of make you wonder, doesn't it, Rhino, if Obama wasn't trying to prop them up. That's always been in question to me. And I hate to say that about an American president, even one with whom I don't think I agree with on anything, that I certainly didn't vote for. But I don't like the idea that an American president is more loyal to an enemy than their own country. But I feel like he had a chip on his shoulder about that, right? It's no different than the congressperson from New York and Challenger that we talked about a couple of days ago and asked on a local television station, they're running for the same congressional seat in New York, who they're pulling for in the World Cup. And one said Mexico and the other said Senegal. What the hell is that? And you're sitting in the U.S. Congress? What happened to that oath thing? Now, I know it's sports, but it does make you wonder at a minimum. And you start thinking about, well, are you considering that when making policy? Are you rooting for other countries? What? And then we have Democrat socialists that's about to be the mayor of America's capital city. People are so misguided if they think that taking out of one pocket, skimming off the top in your corrupt government position, and then just funneling it out the door creates better qualities of life. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You can get mad about Elon Musk all day long, but you can't deny he and all these other people have produced stuff you're all using every day. You're all benefiting from it. You don't even know it. You don't want to acknowledge it. I get fired up, I know, because we cannot let this country continue down this path to socialism, man. There's a reason why Europe is in the straits it is in, and they've been at this a lot longer than us. The idea that in the UK, the per capita GDP is less than it is in the poorest state in the country, that being ours, we pass them up. Isn't that a hint that maybe your systems suck? They don't get it. Sorry for the rant. Coming right back with Public Service Commissioner Chris Brown. Stay with us.
If you're about to Middays with Gerard Gibert. It is on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Back with you in the Element Well studio. We're now joined by Public Service Commissioner for Mississippi's Northern District. That would be Chris Brown. We appreciate you coming on there, Commissioner Brown. So first, give us a little update. I'm surprised you're in the studio today. What you doing in town? What's going on here?
At least once a month we come down for docket, and so today was docket day. So
okay.
It's, as a business guy, it's always weird. We're quasi-judicial.
Okay.
So literally when we walk in, they say all rise and everything, so it's kind of weird.
So you getting some stuff done as a result of that?
We are. You know, our job is to kind of oversee the utilities of the state. So Mississippi Power, Entergy, natural gas, sewer, water. So we always have something to do.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Well, you know what's been a prominent subject in the state, certainly in our country, to some extent even in the world, is that's connected to your function as the Public Service Commissioner, is this massive build-out of data centers in our state, in our country, and abroad as well, that do require lots of electricity, in some cases for cooling the IT infrastructure inside, do require water. Of course, you got to have land to build them on, and so a lot of folks are concerned about these issues. And in fact, here in central Mississippi, You may be aware there was a hearing, I guess, last night in the city of Jackson where the city council and others hosted this event to allow just individual citizens to come in and express their concerns. But what I'm seeing is just a massive amount of misinformation that's being propagated, and, of course, it gets amplified by social media in a big time. I'm just going to ask you this question to get started. Any rate increases that would apply to the traditional consumer residential ratepayer have to be approved by the Public Service Commission. Is that correct?
That's correct. As long as it's a privately held company like Entergy, Mississippi Power. No,
that's under your purview.
The TVA co-ops in the north, no, they're regulated by TVA.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
But a private entity such as Entergy that covers the western footprint of Mississippi, where many of these facilities are, they got to come before you. I mean, there's some exceptions based on the cost of fuel inputs and market. Sure. They've got some leeway there. But in general, I think it's the economics of producing electricity that maybe is not widely understood. It's a function of CapEx more than it is the actual OpEx.
Correct, and it's a formula, right? And so the law allows them to recoup certain capital investments and to pay for their infrastructure. So just look at it like this. A certain percentage or part of your bill every month is to maintain the infrastructure. That's the poles and the power lines, the generation, all those things. A certain portion of the bill is part of that calculation of that formula. Everybody pays a little part, their little share percentage of those infrastructure costs and power generation costs. And fuel is passed through. So bills will go up and down based on the cost of hydrocarbon and other fuel sources to generate the energy. But that's no profit to the company at all. It just passes through.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, so and the bigger the company is, if you pay 4% of your bill for infrastructure costs, that's just a number. It's not. I'm just using it for reference.
Yeah.
If you pay 4%, and my bill at home is $150, I'm paying 4% for infrastructure. If that big industrial development comes in, either technology infrastructure or whatever it is, and their bill is $80,000 and they pay 4%, then they're going to support a larger portion of that infrastructure based on that percentage of the cost to deliver the energy.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
And so a lot of people don't understand that your bill is basically a huge formula. And so you put all the data points in, and it spits out how much per kilowatt hour it's going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so there are some leeways that a company has to be able to negotiate cost on bulk energy. And we'll see that in different parts around the state that they negotiate with the company on how much per kilowatt hour. But what we at the Public Service Commission want to do is to make sure that Mississippians are not subsidizing industry through their bills. And we're very diligent about that.
But you've heard the concerns. The concerns are that this contract was negotiated privately, confidentially between Entergy and AWS. Certainly, the largest will be the largest consumer of electricity of all the data center operators setting up shop in Mississippi. And the concern is that they've given them a sweetheart discount deal, which is going to necessitate Entergy raising rates on everybody else to cover those costs.
So I think a lot of where that's coming from is that there are some capital investments, capital costs that had to be incurred by Entergy to be able to provide power to AWS.
Yeah.
So who pays for those capital improvements? And I think that is what people are really concerned about. So transparency is the best thing. You know, if we're transparent, Entergy's transparent, AWS is transparent. If everybody's transparent, there's no particular boogeyman in the corner, so to speak. So, you know, we want to make sure that there's transparency all the way through the process. And I think it's very important. That's the role that we play, is to try to make sure that everything is transparent. And AWS, you know, it's interesting because we have three different data centers doing it three different ways. You have Compass and Meridian that just made a contract directly with Mississippi Power and kind of started building out their infrastructure. Then you had AWS, which worked with MDA and came to the legislature. because of secrecy and NDAs and things like that. So they needed speed to market, and they didn't want people knowing that they were coming for obvious reasons. So they went that direction. Then we have XAI up in DeSoto County that pretty much just dealt with the locals' side. We didn't have any input on those data centers because they're what they call behind the meter. XAI is producing all their own energy. They'll have up to 41 gas turbines producing the energy they need to run their data center on campus. So they don't disrupt the grid. They don't cost anybody any money around them. There are some headwinds on noise and things like that we need to try to look at. So I think the anxiety people have is the unknown. There's a lot of unknowns to say, okay, who is regulating some of this? Who's making sure that these questions are answered? And I think that's the important part for all of us in the agency side is to be transparent and try to get in front of it and let people know how it operates and how it functions, and trust but verify, right?
Yeah.
I think that's been the interesting part all the way through since I've been in this position.
Sure.
I'm a business guy, so I want to know why, and accounting is accounting.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Garbage in, garbage out. So you got to make sure that they're doing it right, and that we're guarding the ratepayers. And at the end of the day, technology infrastructure can be a huge benefit for Mississippi. We were talking on the way down here. I had a friend of mine lives in Sevier County, Tennessee. That's where Gatlinburg is, and so Gatlinburg has huge tourism income. So it has one of the lowest property taxes in the state. Why? Because they take that revenue and they cut the property tax for everybody in that district. So there's all kind of things that could be done that can benefit a local economy. You know, if a data center goes into XYZ county and those supervisors negotiate the deal with that company, which they do, a payment in lieu of or fee in lieu of taxes, then they could use that for any number of things. They could give you a homestead exemption if you live in the county. They could give teachers pay raise. They could pave more roads. That's a huge revenue generator, and I think that's, again, where the transparency part comes. If people see the benefit, they're going to jump on board and be part of this revolution that is coming whether we want it or not. Technology infrastructure is coming, and it's incumbent upon the United States to lead. And I'll tell you,
I agree.
I was telling somebody this. It's like, somebody was telling me, I'm scared of AI. And I said, I get that. A lot of people are very concerned, but it's kind of like the nuclear deterrent, right? I hate to use that example, but the United States has a nuclear arsenal. We can keep everybody straight because we have the power, and they won't rival us.
Yeah.
So we have peace through strength, and I think it's the same thing with data. The one that controls the data will control the future. And I'd rather it be the United States of America and not China or India or some foreign power.
Right.
So it's incumbent that we get this right, that it benefits our citizens, doesn't tax our citizens, but we utilize it in a way that benefits us all.
I agree. All right, we got a break. We can keep talking. We got Public Service Commissioner Chris Brown in the Element Wealth studio. Coming right back.
Thanks.
From thesebro.com. Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Thanks so much for joining us today. So we're visiting with Northern District Public Service Commissioner Chris Brown. I guess what I mainly want to do, Commissioner, is kind of put the public's mind at ease that if Entergy were to show up since they are under your purview as a regulated utility, and say, hey, look, we miscalculated on what we thought was going to be needed for Amazon Web Services, and we miscalculated in our direct agreement with them for the rates, kilowatt hours. And we got to have more money, guys, and you're going to have to approve this, and we're going to recover this from traditional consumer, non-industrial, non-AWS ratepayers. I don't think you guys are going to be friendly to them. I hope you wouldn't be friendly to such a request.
No, we're not going to do that. And I will tell you this: there were some build out that there were some timelines that the companies agreed to, and there were going to be some liquidated damages if they didn't hit those timelines. Well, those were negotiated outside of our purview. We didn't get to decide if it's prudent or not because of the speed to market issue. So we were going to be well within the area. If you promised you're going to deliver it and you don't, and then you have a penalty to pay, I'm not putting that on the ratepayers. That's your deal. You're going to have to eat that. And so, we're very, very aggressive at trying to make sure that that we're not transferring the cost of a multi-billion-dollar company's investment on the ratepayers of Mississippi.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I think if AWS or XAI or Compass, they're very wealthy companies. I guarantee they don't want that either.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not any money for them. And look at XAI. We had the Ice Storm Fern, Weather Storm Fern, of 187,000 meters that went down. Even through the best efforts, it took a while to get the systems back on and those substations fired back up. We even had a main line from TVA go down, so that no energy coming from the power sources at all from the TVA Valley. But XAI, being a good neighbor, they donated 500 generators.
That's right, I remember
to people
that
didn't have power, didn't want fanfare, didn't ask for a parade or anything. They just did what needed to be done to try to help the citizens of the state. So I do think those companies, if they knew, and that's our job, and I think our diligence, if we have purview over it to make sure that, hey, you're not going to transfer the cost of your business onto the ratepayers.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be very diligent about that.
All right. So in DeSoto County, they're temporary turbines,
correct, that
are in production right now, powering the XAI facilities. And those are generating annoying noise. I think that it's true. I've seen folks submit and publish videos, from their residents where you can clearly hear the noise in the video. But this is a temporary exemption, correct? That the permanent turbines will be online sometime early next year. At that point, do you guys know, do we expect the noise to be eliminated when the permanent turbines are installed?
I know the company, I do feel for the people there. And this is one thing, just transparency, we have no overview, no purview over that at all.
Okay. Noise.
The noise or the county's negotiation with XAI and everything like that. But,
gotcha.
But that begs the question, should we? Should there be some agency looking kind of soft regulation, not heavy, to try to make sure that as these data centers and these assets come in, are the people around it being protected, and what does that look like? And so, yes, to answer your question, my understanding is an 18-month temporary permit, and so if they don't have the turbines, the permanent ones ready, they may extend for another 18 months. But their goal is to quiet that noise down. And my understanding is the company has built berms and concrete walls and trees and things like that. So the last I heard, the noise is unacceptable.
Okay.
But they know it, and they're going to try to do everything they can to address it with the new power generators.
I mean, they don't want to get sideways with the community.
No.
These companies want to be good corporate community citizens.
Most of them do, and that's part of it, is that, it's trust but verify.
Yeah.
I was a business guy, so were you.
Sure.
I want people loving me, and loving my company.
Heck yeah.
I want our logo to shine brighter every day. And I think companies like XAI and AWS, they don't want a black eye.
Yeah.
And so, if we see that there's a potential for that, then we'll be on them, try to get the message to them really quick. And there is a little cloud around the go back to AWS about some of the capital investments, because they did take it out from under our authority, so to speak. And so the question is it prudent or is it not? And so that's going to work out. We're watching it so we can come back in later and try to make sure that the money was not, for those capital investments, were not added to the rate base. And if so, there's some question: can we discern if it was prudent or not, and what is the repercussions of it? Okay. So that's what a lot of people talk about. I think there's a group here in Jackson that is a watchdog on those things. Are those capital improvements that have been added to the bill, is that prudent? Is it something that had to be done, or is it for AWS? And so Entergy will testify to us that it was going to be done anyway. So we're going to, again, kind of make sure we keep an eye on the process, and that we're going to guard the ratepayer. And I do think, again, I'll make the statement that I think AWS don't want to transfer the costs onto our citizens. So I think we'll work hand in glove and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's right. And Entergy has been very forthcoming and transparent about that as well. You've probably heard and spoke to Haley Fasackerly and members of his team at Entergy about this. And they make the case that, hey, this is an issue of economies of scale, that essentially by Amazon coming in here, we're able to modernize our grid. We got to do that anyhow, but by them coming in, we're able to spread those costs over more consumers, and they being a large one, they'll be the biggest one, honestly, in their footprint when it's all said and done. It's
amazing times. I tell a lot of my friends and colleagues, my kids say the PSC is what makes Dad boring, but it's the most exciting time in the energy industry since Edison discovered the light bulb. And it sounds crazy, but it's true, because we have these huge demands for energy. We're starting to see companies nearshore come back to the United States and set up manufacturing here. The data, which is an arms race, so we have a race for the future of data. Right. And whoever controls the data is going to control the future. So I want that to be the United States of America, and Mississippi can play a huge role in that. But again, we're not going to do it at the detriment of Mississippians and our citizens. So we're going to continue to watch that. But it's exciting times. How are we going to generate energy? So now, the nuclear revolution is coming, and there's amazing things happen there with SMRs and microreactors. And a microreactor, I was just talking to some of the university engineering and thing. Mississippi State just restarted their nuclear engineering minor. They had a class last semester for the first one in years, decades, that actually tried to gauge the interest in nuclear. And I think it was Introduction to Nuclear Energy. And
how about that?
That's
cool.
65 sign up for it. And I asked the dean, I was like, did that exceed your expectations? And he was like, well, yeah. If we had 10, I thought we were doing great. We had 65.
That's incredible.
The interest in the future is now, and
I'm sure you've seen Microsoft is working with Constellation Energy, I believe, restarting one of the reactors of 3 Mile Island. It's going to be pretty much dedicated to them and their data center investments. Mm-hmm. You got the big campus former Governor Rick Perry and a team are involved in out in West Texas. Mm-hmm. That's going to include nuclear power there on the site to power the data center investments. So we're smart people in this country. We can solve this problem and do both.
The coolest thing is, I woke up one day and I was like, hey, we just flew around the moon again.
I know.
So technology is moving so fast, and it's like, I knew it was coming, but how'd you miss it? And it's like the media, things get lost, and American exceptionalism is real. That we have entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and others that develop spaceships that can circle the moon.
Incredible.
First time in decades, right?
Yeah.
And we're moving down that energy path too. So a microreactor is the size of a shipping container, right? They have the self-cooling rods. It won't fall down. It will not explode. It won't melt down. It won't. The one they're building in the University of Illinois is literally being constructed right across from a dormitory. Is how safe they are. So it's a different technology.
Unlimited supply of energy.
Then you get into fast reactors, and then fusion. So that's coming too.
Yeah,
it's right around the
corner.
corner.
I've talked about that. Yeah. Some of the advances made in fusion technology,
correct,
which has confounded scientists for decades.
And so, and the good thing for Americans and for us, if we get this right, and AI is part of it. That's how we design these things and get there to where we have inexpensive energy. So I always tell people, and the young people look at me funny because I say the movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they'll come.
Yeah.
If we get the energy race right, then we will have affordable, reliable, resilient power.
Got it.
We will control.
I feel more. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Appreciate Public Service Commissioner Chris Brown for joining us today. So he also wanted to pass on. There's been kind of a rather controversial matter here. Certainly in central Mississippi, there's an individual that developed the Topgolf, developed some hotels here, the Prado organization, and wants to get in the business of delivering power behind the grid to data centers. And it got out there that he was doing this without any oversight of the PSC, that the PSC had agreed to that. That's not true. The PSC has not agreed, and he wanted me to make that point. And I talked to another PSC commissioner, DeKeither Stamps, about that when I saw that report, and he confirmed that as well. So that's actually not true. I'm not sure what Mr. Prado was trying to say. It could have just came out and got reported inconsistent with his take on it, his actual statements. But nonetheless, I just wanted to pass that on. So it was Senator Frazier, Hillman Frazier in central Mississippi, that actually held a webinar last night, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's been in this week. And it was just about the possibility of allowing data centers to locate in the city of Jackson, in his district. There's been some talk about that. The city council is addressing it and considering it. So he got kind of a town hall format webinar, but there was an individual that was also present, I don't know, remotely or present from where the town hall was being conducted, but it's a policy consultant is the way this individual is described, who said that some Mississippians are paying more, actually rural Mississippians, have paid tens of millions in 2026 to compensate for data center energy consumption. I'm not aware of that. So, one thing is the rates are the same whether you're rural or whether you're urban. You can't have different rates, to my knowledge. And maybe that's not exactly what she was trying to say, but she focuses on rural Mississippians, and so I expected that her comments were the target of them and intended to represent them. So I'm not aware of that. I haven't seen that in my electric bills. So I think more information is needed. They also discussed the various tax incentives that are provided. It's not just these projects. It's any number of large investments into the state where we're in competition with other states yeah, typically there are some sort of tax incentives that are provided. It's usually an exemption from corporate income tax, sales tax on their purchases of goods and services. And then at the local level, it's usually in the form of a discount on property taxes. But it's not a matter of, hey, we shouldn't have to do that to lure these investments into the state. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a data center or factory or a distribution facility or any other sort of industrial project. That's a situation where you're typically in competition with other states. And when the other states are offering incentives like this, you either do or you get nothing. So it's not like, well, we didn't need to give away the farm or we didn't need to provide this incentive and this exemption and that exemption. It's not like that. It's really, well, you either compete to win or you get nothing. It's something or zero, not the maximum or a lower amount. That's a false choice. It's something or zero. The something you're getting is a massive amount of local property taxes, even at a discount. A massive amount. And not to mention the folks that they hire that, of course, generate economic activity. They pay sales taxes and income taxes and, of course, support all the other businesses in their area. They buy houses and cars and send their kids to school, all the above, and they pay property taxes. So either directly because they own property or indirectly because they rent. And then it's to all the businesses that serve these organizations and the massive amount of economic activity that generates. Some 88 Mississippi-based businesses involved in the AWS project. Some have shared with me they're making more money than they ever have in their history. That's worth something. Out of here today, back tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.